Hey guys, it's me Seren, back with another video. So this is going to be my review of Solange's album, A Seat at the Table. It's been highly requested. I am going to say that this is just going to be on the audio, I guess you could say, like on the album itself. She did release two visuals, one for Cranes in the Sky and one for Don't Touch My Hair. And I'm going to make a separate video discussing those visuals because I think there's a lot to unpack there. And I kind of just want to focus on just the album itself, just for this video. So maybe that'll be like the next one, whatever. We'll figure it out. So A Seat at the Table. So I'm going to say kind of just some of my initial thoughts. It had 21 tracks. Like full songs as well as interludes. I think maybe it was like 15 or 16 full tracks and like 5 interludes, including an intro. So I'm not going to go through every single track. I'm just going to kind of talk about my favorites and how I felt kind of just like about the album overall. So when I first started listening to it, it just like really hit me. Like it really struck me. I love Solange. Any of you guys that follow me on Tumblr, especially, you guys know that I tag Solange as the moon of my life, and I've been tagging her as that for like a few years now, maybe like 3 years. Well, yeah, like 2 or 3 years. I've always had a soft spot for Solange. I've always had this like soft spot for Solange, like even though I was always very hard on Beyonce, because Solange just always seemed to me like she definitely hit a certain point where she was like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, I'm just gonna like kind of march. What's the saying? March to the beat of my own drum. And I'm just kind of gonna do my own thing. And I feel like Solange has always felt very persecuted for that. And I think she's always felt very persecuted in a way that Beyonce does not feel. So I've just always really felt close to Solange, felt this kinship with her. She's only a couple years older than me, but I look up to her a lot in a way. And I just really love her music. She makes her first album was very 2000s, very R&B pop-ish. But even then, she had this like real eclectic kind of style, and she was writing songs. She's been songwriting since she was like 15 or 16. She used to write songs for Destiny's Child and for Beyonce. So even then there was this kind of like eclectic thing happening with her. And then she did Soul Angel and the Hadley Street Dreams, which I loved, which is kind of like funk, Motown, girl groups, disco inspired pop, R&B. She does a lot of messing around with genres that I like. And then she released the True EP, which got like all this critical acclaim and kind of like really firmly sent her into her own lane of existing kind of in this indie, hippie kind of space. And then like she like cut off all her hair, and so she had this like natural hair that she kind of got known for, this like big afro. And she like, I love the way that Solange dresses. Like she's like a huge style icon for me. And she, like I said, she kind of just started like going her own way, but it still felt like she was trying to find herself and find her sound and find her subject matter. She was making a lot of songs about love, and there aren't very many songs about love on this album. And breakups and relationships. So I think she was still searching for something, and then she took this break like 4 or 5 years between the True EP and A Seat at the Table. And you can kind of tell that during that time she was doing a lot of reflection, a lot of self-reflection. She actually put up on YouTube also a short video kind of about the process of how she made this album, which I'm also going to discuss in my video, where I discuss the visuals for Don't Touch My Hair and Cranes in the Sky, and just how it was this whole process for her, how it was this like transitional period of kind of coming into her own and figuring out her sound and figuring out her style and what she wanted to say. And as a creator, a content creator, a writer, an artist, I can really, 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 really appreciate that. Like this album, like I said, it touched me. It definitely did touch me, which is why I wanted to take some time to sit with it, listen to it, and figure out how I felt about it. So it's an extremely cohesive body of work with, like I said, an intro, an outro, interludes, and bridges, which you don't see much of very more, interludes and bridges. Again, I remember like in the 99s and the 2000s, and I was like a teenager, like every single album used to have like an intro, an outro, like in these interludes. Like I remember Ludacris used to be like known for that, like having these like really funny like skits. But that's kind of like not popping anymore. People don't do that. So it was kind of a nice little throwback to hear that on this album. And they're so well done, like the way the interludes are placed, the content, it just all creates this like extremely cohesive sound. And it's almost like, this is definitely one of those albums that you can play through from beginning to end, because it's almost like one big, like I said, like one, I don't want to say one big song, but like one, it's a very well crafted album. Like it's an experience, definitely from beginning to end. You don't have to skip like anything. A neo-soul feeling, which doesn't surprise me because again, Solange has been kind of moving in that lane for a while now. And Raphael Sadiq was one of the executive producers. It was executive produced by herself and Raphael Sadiq, and that's it. And she also wrote and arranged every single song herself. So this was like clearly like Solange's vision, and you can see that there are some disco touches, which she always has in her work. Like I said, there's a real eclectic pop funk sound, which she always has in her work. But I definitely think that bringing on Raphael Sadiq was a huge step in the right direction, because it sounds like she's finally perfected her sound. On the True EP, she worked exclusively with Dev Hynes, who makes music as Blood Orange. I don't like his music because to me it sounds like 80s porno music for some reason. To me, that's just like all I think about when I listen to his music. It sounds like cheesy 80s porno music. And so it's not for me. I know a lot of people like it, so this is not to like shit on anybody that likes it, but just for me, it's just like, I feel like I'm, watching porn every time I listen to his music. And if that's the sound he's going for, which it might be, and if that's something that you guys enjoy, I know a lot of people that enjoy those like kind of 80s sounds with the synthesizers and stuff like that. Better for you, but like, I love what Raphael Sadiq did with Solange and did with this project, because I love like neo soul. It definitely had that old Soulquarians neo soul feeling. Raphael Sadiq was one of the executive producers, and he just really, really like brought the album together. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the Soulquarians real quick, just for anyone that's never heard of them or doesn't know. The Soulquarians were a neo-soul and alternative hip-hop informed musical collective. The collective formed during the late 1990s, continued into the early 2000s, and produced several well-received albums. Common, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Q-Tip, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Jay Dilla, Bilal, It was like a whole period. It was like a whole period of time where you had these black artists that were making this, this neo soul music, this R&B music, and it was coming from a certain place, and it had a certain sound, and it had certain messages in it. It wasn't beating you over the head with like consciousness or anything like that, but like it was coming from a certain place, and I definitely feel like Solange has tapped into that feeling with this work, A Seat at the Table, and I loved it. Like I said, I like her music. This is more my personal taste than Beyonce's music, and I prefer this to Lemonade, which I haven't even listened. I listened to Lemonade, I watched it twice, and then I think I listened to it once more, and I like bop to it when the songs come on in a restaurant or on the radio, but like Lemonade is not something I like sit at home and listen to, because Lemonade still makes me feel so sad. It never grew on me. Lemonade never grew on me. I preferred this album to Lemonade, because just for my own personal taste. So I did like all of the songs. Like I said, this is like a very cohesive project that you can listen to from beginning to end. So there weren't any songs that I didn't like, but I did have clear favorites, which I'm going to go through. But before I get into that, I'm just going to read you guys a definition of what is a seat at the table. A seat at the table is a position as a member of a group that makes decisions. a position as a member of a group that makes decisions. So naming it a seat at the table I thought was very, very powerful in a couple of ways. Number one, a lot of what many Black people feel like we're fighting for is a seat at the table, is a place in this world and in this society where we can make decisions, where we can control our own narratives, where we can, be represented. It's a place. We're looking for a place. And also, we have within our own communities kind of our own table, and it's kind of like pull up a seat to our table, and we're going to talk, and let's sit down, and we're going to talk, and we're going to talk about what's going on, and we're going to talk about, how we feel, and we're going to reflect, and we're going to practice self-care, and we're going to heal, and we're going to empower, and we're going to get mad, and we're going to rage, and we're going to scream, and we're going to do it all at this table amongst ourselves, and with our people. And that was, it's kind of like this album is the table. So it's like, come have a seat. I saw this good meme floating around that was actually, it was lemonade and a seat at the table, like side by side. And it said, like, have a seat at the table and drink this lemonade. Like, we're going to sit at the table. And these albums, they're definitely kind of companion pieces in a way, with the things that they address, and they're I kind of would love for them to make an album together. Like, that would be really, really interesting. But like I said, Solange, like, very deliberately tries to, like, stay in her own lane, which I totally get when your sister's Beyonce. But I definitely felt like the naming it of a seat at the table is powerful and just really encapsulates all the feelings and emotions that are kind of wrapped up in this album. So it opens with Rise, which is a very straight up jazzy intro. And it says, like, fall in your ways so you can crumble, fall in your ways so you can sleep at night, fall in your ways so you can wake up and rise. And it's just about, like, to me, of course this is my opinions of what I feel like these songs are about, being yourself. Like, a lot of this album is about being yourself. I think it took a long time for Solange to get to a point where she feels comfortable being herself, and doing what she wants to do and saying what she wants to say and kind of standing in that truth and owning it. And that's what I think this intro is about. Like, be yourself, own your fucking Blackness, own your identity, like, own that shit, stand in it, and rise, which it was a perfect intro. It was a perfect introduction, I think, to the album and the kind of specific brand of Black empowerment that this album was about. The next song, which technically is the first track, is Weary, which is just, the lyrics to this song are just everything, even though the song is very catchy. The lyrics to the song are very, very socially relevant with what she's talking about. She's talking about being fucking tired, being exhausted. She literally says, like, I'm weary of the ways of the world. Like, I'm going to look for my body, I'm going to look for my glory, and I'll be back. It's very much like this world is fucking weighing on me. Like, the world is heavy as shit, and it's weighing on me. Like, it's weighing on me as a Black person, it's weighing on me as a Black woman, it's weighing on me. But this is not, like, a sad song, right? Which, again, the sound of this album, like I said, is very light. It's very, this, like, eclectic, neo soul, pop, funk, R&B, disco fusion. I said in my Lemonade video that a lot of Lemonade felt very sad and heavy, and at points like it was literally beating you over the fucking head with this message. And A Seat at the Table doesn't do that. It's very light. They're, like, the songs are pretty light. They're very catchy, and it's hard to make social relevance catchy. Like, it's hard to make I'm weary of the ways of the world into, like, a catchy-ass hook that you get stuck in your head, that you find yourself humming about how you weary, So, I love that. And it references her essay, which she wrote, because she says, do you belong? I do. Which references an essay that she wrote, of course, which there will be links in the description box, after an incident that she had at a Kraftwerk concert where these white ladies were sitting behind her, and they told her she needed to sit down because she was, like, up enjoying the concert with her son, singing and dancing. and they told her she needed to sit down, and one of them threw something at her. And so she wrote this essay about being Black in white spaces, because she says, I'm at this Kraftwerk concert, which is like this indie fucking group, and there's like thousands of people here, and like we are like 2 of like 5 Black people that are here, and you have these white women that, they feel, number one, they feel entitled. They have the sense of entitlement over me and my body and my behavior and what I'm doing and how I'm acting, that they feel like it's appropriate telling me I need to sit down and like throwing something at me while I'm like here trying to enjoy myself with my son. Like, what the hell? And she tweeted about it, and I like remember because like I retweeted it, and we actually had a conversation about it on Twitter. And then I remember saying, like, it's, the funniest part is that I bet you those fucking white girls are Beyonce fans, because white people just love Beyonce nowadays, right? So I was like, and I bet you if Beyonce had turned around, it would have gone totally different. But like, since it was Solange, someone that they maybe didn't recognize right away or didn't know, they felt comfortable kind of showing their true faces, which I talked about a little bit in my old video that I have about Common, and I feel like I probably talked about this in other videos. You have a lot of Black people that are rich, or that, are respected, or that in these certain positions that kind of like don't live in the real world. And so you have a lot of these people that are like, racism isn't so bad. I see white people every day, and they're like so nice and wonderful to me. And it's like, because you're living in this like certain reality, But the rest of us, which is kind of what Solange got an experience of in that moment, are not living that reality, where we're not recognized, or we're not rich, or we're not famous, where, a lot of these white people feel comfortable showing us their true faces and showing us this hostility when we are a Black face in a white space, right? And so that's what her essay is about, and she references it in the song Weary. There are a lot of references to things that happen in her personal life. And especially within the music business, there's another one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on specifically. So, Weary was great. I loved it. Cranes in the Sky, loved it. That's probably my second favorite song. It's a very good song about depression. It's a very sad song about trying to run away from sadness. But again, it's not a heavy song. I don't feel sad listening to it. I feel like, yes, like somebody gets it. Like somebody gets what it feels like when you just feel so sad and you're just like trying to get away from the feeling. But again, it's a catchy song. Like, like I tried to, what did she say? Like, I tried to run it away. I traveled. I thought moving around would make me feel better. I tried to, get rid of my lover. Thought if I was alone that I could recover. I danced it away. I sexed it away. I tried to change it with my hair. Like, but it's like an upbeat song. Like, it's a mid-tempo song. It's not like a slow, sad song, but it's about the subject matter of, you're feeling sad and you're feeling these clouds, these mental clouds, and you're trying to like get out of it, and you're trying to snap out of it, and just what that feels like. And I thought that it was brilliant. I read this really good quote recently that I wanted to read you guys. Ever since I bought this notebook, I've just been like writing down everything. I'm so glad I bought this. Intimacy is activating the senses in art. Intimacy in art is about activating the senses. It's about, creating these experiences that people can relate to. And with this song, Cranes in the Sky, really with this whole entire album, but definitely with this particular song, listening to it, I felt like there was intimacy there. Like, here is somebody that understands what this feels like. And there's also been a lot of talk recently about depression and anxiety and mental illness in the Black community. Kid Cudi, who anyone that knows me knows I'm like one of those obsessed Kid Cudi #1 stans, like Kid Cudi saved my life type of stans, who recently checked himself into rehabilitation. He wrote this long open letter on Facebook about being depressed and about being suicidal and about, not being okay and feeling ashamed and feeling ashamed to admit that. And there's a huge stigma around mental illness. There's a huge stigma around mental illness in general in this country. I don't like to frame that as a Black thing. A lot of people have been asking me, like, how do I feel about, like, mental illness in the Black community, and Revolt ran at what I felt like was a very ugly piece that said, like, why don't we talk about mental illness in the Black community? I've been thinking, I feel like a lot of things that are framed as, like, Black problems are things that we learned from colonization, things that we were taught. A lot of ideas about health, mental health especially, and gender and sexuality, and a lot of things about patriarchy and, like I said, gender roles and heteronormative ideas, and again, illness and mental illness. Number one, we have a healthy fear of doctors because we were experimented on for centuries, you know. The gynecology as we know it today, and like the development of the use of forceps and anesthesia and all those things were tested out on Black bodies, on the bodies of slaves. And it went well into the 20th century, and probably even still going on in the 21st century of the experimentation on Black bodies. The Tuskegee experiments where they gave people fucking syphilis and then they just, like, let them go just to, like, see what would happen, and they didn't tell them, which they have a movie about, Miss Evers Boys, and then they gave it to their wives and they gave it to their kids, and it kind of went rampant through the community. And so number one, we have a healthy fear of doctors, okay? We have a healthy fear of doctors. Even to this day, there have been studies that shown that white people, which I've talked about before, think that Black people feel less pain, physical pain, mental pain. They have an inability to empathize with us, and this is something that has a huge impact on the medical field because it's been studied that, like, a lot of the times white doctors, they don't believe Black people when we're experiencing pain. They give us lower dosages of pain medication. Like, Black people have a very complicated relationship with doctors in this country. And then you also throw in the fact that as a whole, our society places a stigma on mental illness. I feel some type of way about the framing of a lot of these issues as Black issues, like as if Black people just, like, have these fucking problems for no reason. Like, as if Black people just spontaneously have these problems. No, 99.999% of the problems within our community are a direct fucking result of slavery, of colonization, of racism, of Jim Crow, of us being in this fucking country. So, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent because I really feel some type of way about that. It really gets under my skin and it bothers me. And I think it is important to talk about mental health within the Black community, and I really appreciate that she made this song, Cranes in the Sky. So moving on, Dad Was Mad, loved it. Loved this interlude, Dad Was Mad. I listened to it and I was just like, integration didn't work. Integration didn't work. Integration didn't work. And the more I read about and learn about fake-ass integration, aka assimilation, because we were not integrated, we were forcibly moved into white culture, which is assimilation and desegregation. It is not integration. We were not fully integrated into one, melting pot the way people like to pretend we were. Our fake-ass integration did not work. Listening to Dad Was Mad, all I could think was, from day one, you've had Black people doing all this work, doing all this emotional labor for white people, He's talking about how he spent an entire childhood full of anger. He says, I was angry for years, very angry, because you had to be the one to fake-ass integrate, because you were one of six kids that they sent to an all-white school, which, number one, what are 6 Black kids going to do in an all-white school? That's like a drop in a bucket. And like I said before in my, was it the Get Down video? Even to this day, you have this idea of diversity as like one Black person in this sea of whiteness. A lot of these ideas that went back to the Civil Rights Movement and the way that so many things were just like implemented in such a shitty fucking way. Like, so you put 6 Black kids in this school where they could be spat on, where they could be beat up, where they could be under the threat. He says that we face the threat of death every day. Do you know what that does to someone? getting back to mental illness, getting back to mental health. You know what that does to someone's mindset, being under that kind of stress every single day and as a child? And then you grow up and you have to deal with that trauma, and Black people don't get no fucking therapy, which Master P says at a later point. You know, Black kids don't have therapy. We don't have fucking rehab. We have to figure this shit out on our own. So then you grow up and you're dealing with all this trauma, post-traumatic slave syndrome, as Joy DeGruy calls it, and then you have kids and you're trying to like impart some wisdom on them, but you're still dealing with your own childhood trauma, you know, and so let's say like you have Beyonce and you like have all these ideas about what you went through, so you know like, oh, Beyonce gotta be tough. So you like make her go run in the park and shit like that, which she's talked about on Lemonade, you know, like on her song Daddy Lessons, like Daddy made a soldier out of me. That is directly tied to Matthew Knowles' experiences, you know, all this emotional labor, all this work that Black people who did not create racism, who did not create the concept of race, who did not choose to fucking be slaves, who did not create the idea of Jim Crow. We didn't create any of this shit, but yet we're expected to do so much work and extend the hand out in love to white people while white people just sit back on their fucking fat asses and don't have to do anything except play the fucking victim all the time. I'm so done with that shit. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm not doing any more emotional work for white people. Like, I'm done. Like, even the videos that I make are for Black people. Like, all types of people watch the videos, I know that, and like get their life from it, and that's fine. But like, I refuse to do any more emotional labor for them. Even like the idea of like integration, for example, should have been like fully like, you should have been busing white kids into Black neighborhoods too, if that's what you're gonna do. You should have been fixing up infrastructure in Black neighborhoods to ensure that it was actually equal, and then moving white kids in there. Why did everything have to be, again, about moving us into whiteness? Because it was about assimilation, not integration. We were not integrated. We were never integrated. Dad was mad. Loved it. Again, relatable. Listening to this whole album, I was like, relatable, 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 relatable. Dad Was Mad goes right into Mad, a song called Mad, which is, it was for all the angry Black girls. So I felt like this is like an anthem for angry Black girls everywhere. You know, I ran into this girl. I said, damn, this shit is draining. I don't feel like explaining. You know, I'm not really allowed to be mad, even though I've got a lot to be mad about. Like, the motto, words to live by, the anthem. Like, we have a lot of shit to be mad about. But people act like we can't fucking be mad. And, like, it's so inappropriate to be mad. And why are you getting so mad? And why are you so passionate? And why are you yelling? It's like, no, there's a lot to be mad about. There's a lot to be mad about. So, again, relatable. And I also think in addition to just kind of being, like I said, an anthem for all, you know, angry Black girls everywhere, I also think this one was very personal because people are always accusing Solange specifically of being mad. And talking about how Solange is always getting into it with people, and Solange is always arguing with people, and, you know, I felt like there were some very personal references there, which there's another song, Don't You Wait, which I liked, but it's not on my personal list of favorites, where she has a line that says, I don't want to bite the hand that has shown me the other side, which is a direct reference to a Twitter argument that she got into with this New York Times critic named John Caramanica. I hope I'm saying that right. Well, I really don't care, but John Caramanica or something like that, where she said something about, which I've talked about in my Importance of Black Critics videos. She says something about white critics that don't know anything about our culture, but they get to critique us. And they get to critique our music, and they get to critique our movies and our art forms when they don't know, they're not familiar with our culture. But again, since they're white, they have this weight of whiteness and their opinion, and they work for, you know, these publications that have this weight, the Fader and Pitchfork and Stereo Gum, you know, that they get to write these reviews and say whatever they want, really. Like, you know, if I start, you know, I don't know, the Black People Times, and I write articles about how Adele is trash, people not going to take me seriously. But, like, white people that don't know anything about our music or our culture just because they write for Pitchfork have all this weight. So someone had written a review about one of Brandy's albums, and Brandy is fucking iconic. I love Brandy. I grew up listening to Brandy. Brandy was a blueprint for a lot of the pop girls of all races that are out right now, and a bunch of her later albums are just criminally underrated. 211 is a brilliant album. Aphrodisiac is a brilliant album. Full Moon is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant album. Like, these are albums that should be like up there. These are like classic albums. And this reviewer like wrote this album, and a lot of what people like to do nowadays, because they just steal everything, is write in this kind of like fake African-American vernacular English, like as if they're throwing shade, because white people love to talk about throwing shade nowadays, and they love to, you know, steal all our shit and then try to use it against us. So it was written in this like very derogatory, teasing, throwing shade type of manner, basically talking shit about Brandy. And Solange was like, somebody that clearly doesn't know anything about Brandy's music or her deep cuts or her older tracks or the significance that she has in pop culture and R&B culture. Like, Brandy was a huge, huge, huge artist. Like, she broke down a lot of barriers for black girls. Maybe they should not write music reviews on her work. Like, you know, like, maybe not. I talked about in one of my videos about the fucking white woman over at Slate that wrote the review of the band, the marching band, at the Battle of the Bands doing the cover of one of Adele's songs. And she was like, everyone's talking about how amazing this is. They went out, you know, during the halftime at the football game, which it wasn't even a football game or a halftime show. It was a battle of the band. Like, from her opening, it's clear you didn't know what you were watching. When you watched the performance, you didn't know what you were listening to. Like, you're going into it completely blind from your white perspective because you don't know anything about our culture, and you get paid to write a 1,000-word op-ed piece and have it published in Slate because you're white and you're writing for Slate. And that's what Solange was talking about. And this New York Times critic wrote her on Twitter, talk about some don't bite the hand that feeds you. You know, you wouldn't even be putting out tracks if it wasn't for your affiliation with Grizzly Bear, which is a white indie, you know, rock band that Solange DJs for. Because like I said, Solange is kind of in that indie lane now. So he's like, oh, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Like, on some, you don't get to talk about white people. You don't get to talk about white, you know, music critics and reviewers, and you don't get to talk about that stuff because we're the only reason that you got put on. Which, number one, her sister is Beyonce. If she wanted to put out fucking records every hour on the hour over at Parkwood, completely financed by her sister's money, she probably could do that. Again, like I said, Solange, I think, feels persecuted in a certain way because she's not her sister, you know? And I do think that makes her very angry, as it should. Like, people think they don't have to respect her, which is mind-boggling. Like, it blows the mind. Like, how are you going to tell me I can't have an opinion because, oh, don't bite the hand that feeds me? Like, very personal references on these tracks and on this album to things that have happened to her specifically that have clearly formulated a lot of her opinions and her ideas about the world and the music industry and the business and the way that she's moving in it. So, loved that. Interlude, Tina Taught Me. When I tell you, I listen to this interlude every morning when I wake up to get ready for my day. Tina is going off on this interlude. She really wants to say shut the fuck up. Like, I can feel the shut the fuck up bubbling up in her throat. She just wants to be like, shut the fuck up, white people. But she's trying to hold back. Because she's just going off. She's like, you know, when white people say, oh, and why is there a Black History Month? We don't have a White History Month. All we've ever been taught is white history. So why are you mad? You are trying to suppress me. Like, that. This is like literally what she says. And I'm just like, yes, Tina, go the fuck off on these white devils. Go off. Go off. Like, yes. So I love that. Tina's hilarious. I follow her on Instagram. She's a pretty funny lady. Like, I like her a lot. And I just really liked that interlude, Tina Taught Me. And it's called Tina Taught Me because it's clearly, again, meant to show us the way that Solange grew up. You know, you grew up with this father that was like full of all this anger. And what did that do to you as a child of this person? And how did that make you feel? You know, and what did that do to you mentally? Again, you were talking about trauma and intergenerational trauma and the way that it's passed down because, of the way that racism is so systemic and ingrained in the way that it operates. And what does that do to you? And then you have on the flip side, you have Tina taught me, who clearly imbued her with this sense of, you know, pride to be black. So you have these ideas, all these ideas, this anger and also this pride, and you have to work through that because again, there's no therapy for fucking black kids. So you just have to work through that shit. And so then the next song is Don't Touch My Hair, which is my favorite track by, well, I don't want to say by far because Cranes in the Sky is like a close second, but I love this song. I listen to this song a million times a day. Sampha's hook is so good. The horns on the chorus are so good, and the lyrics are so good. Like, I've just, like I said, relatable. Don't touch my hair, because it's not just hair. It's the feelings I wear. It's my crown. It's my soul. It's a part of me. You know, I recently cut my hair, which was a choice that I made for myself because I felt ready to let it go, and I felt like, you know, no longer attached to it, and it was carrying all this energy, and I just felt ready. I felt like it was time, and I felt like, you know, it is like, I can't always just like grow it back, whatever. But before I cut my hair, I went to go visit a friend, and we went out to a bar, and we're sitting there, and we have drinks, and someone touches my hair, touches one of my locks, reaches out, and she's just like touching it, and I looked her right in her face, and I said, "You didn't ask." And, dropped it. Oh my God, like, but isn't it so weird that you have to tell someone not to fucking touch you, a stranger, someone that you don't know, like, but people think that it's appropriate to walk up and touch black people and touch our hair like we're in a fucking petting zoo. Like, don't touch my hair. Relatable. So then the next song that I really, next track that I really like that we go into is the FUBU interlude, and then the song FUBU, which is For Us, By Us, which is the name of an old clothing company from the 90s that was black owned, that made, you know, clothes, streetwear specifically for black people. And this interlude with Master P, and pretty much a lot of the interludes of Master P and the song, is just about knowing your worth. Know what you are worth. Understand that you have value. Your culture has value. You don't have to change. You don't have to appease white people. Just know your worth and be yourself as a black person and own it, you know. And one of the lines that Master P says in the interlude is, you know, this white man offered me $1 million, and I was fighting with my brother because he said, take it, but he wanted to own my name, you know, my image, my persona. And so I thought, you know, I'm unsigned, I'm not even signed to a label, you know, I'm selling my own tracks that I like, record myself out the back of my trunk. So if somebody thinks, this white man thinks I'm worth $1 million now, that means I have to be worth way more than that, you know, knowing your worth and staying independent and ending up on the Forbes 40 under 40 list as an independent artist, you know, owning a black-owned label, you know, which just makes it so irritating that his fucking son is such a fuck nigga. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro? But again, black people that grow up a certain way in the lap of luxury, having these certain experiences with white people that the rest of us didn't have, even their own parents, so they just feel differently about them, I guess, than we do, but whatever. But it just makes me so, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me angry to see black people that have like built up these businesses and these empires and made all this money, you know, to pass on to their black children, and then their black children want to just like give it right back to white people. Like how I feel about Shea Moisture, you know, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But like I said, whatever. So yeah, FUBU is just about like knowing your worth, owning it, being yourself. You know, he says, if you don't understand my records, you don't understand me, so this is not for you. You know, some shit is for us. All this shit came from us. and yet we get no respect, and yet, you know, everybody wants to be us and steal our culture and jock everything that we fucking do, from the hair to the way that we dress to the way that we talk, but like not give us any fucking credit and keep on perpetuating anti-blackness against us. And it's just like really like a fucking everlasting loop of fuckery that we're trying to, again, work through. And this song is just like, some shit is for us, not for anybody else, just for us. If you can't sing along, don't get mad, because you have the whole wide world. Why you gotta have this too? This is for us, by us. Relatable. I loved The Dream. You guys know I love The Dream. Anybody that knows me knows I love The Dream. And I love the BJ the Chicago Kid feature. I love him too. He's awesome. And I wish he got more shine, because he is so talented, but he just like doesn't get his respect. Whatever. That's what the song is about. Starting a whole bunch of shit and not getting your fucking respect. So you have to respect, you know, own your respect for yourself. Own your respect for yourself. Which I feel, there are some other songs in between FUBU and Scales, but I feel like FUBU and Scales kind of play off each other, in that, to me, again, Scales is about having these kind of dueling ideas in your mind about blackness and what it means to be black and what you have to do to be successful as a black person. Because she says, on the one hand, you have this society that clearly wants to be you, like the Kardashians, and you know how like hip hop and like rap is so like beloved and mainstream, and gentrification and cultural appropriation, and you have this society that so clearly wants to be you, but yet the same exact society looks down on you and calls you a drug dealer and locks you up and puts you in jail and over polices you and kills you and does medical experimentation on you and doesn't see you as a person, like cognitive dissonance, right? Like there's a break there. And that's what I feel like Skills is about. It's just like expressing that, like, because it's confusing. It can be really hard to wrap your mind around, you know, you love black culture, but you hate black people. You know, Master P says in an interlude after that, you know, like, oh, it's more drugs in the fucking white communities with the rich white kids overdosing than in the black communities. But yet, we the ones that got the stigma, you know, which I talked about in my drug addiction rant, when fucking white people overdose, oh, it's a health problem and they need to be treated gently and put in these heroin clinics where they can come down slowly. But when it's black people, it's this criminal offense and they lock you up in prison for your entire life. But yet, they want to be us, and they want our music, and they want our hair, and they want our culture. It's a disconnect. And it's just like, what? To me, that's what Scales was about. So, I jumped to Scales. So I also liked Borderline and Junie. They're more upbeat songs. And Andre 3000 did the vocals, the background vocals on Junie, even though he's uncredited. So it's always nice to hear Andre 3000 feature. And I loved the Pedestals interlude, which that was the interlude, I want to say, after Scales was Pedestals. Which was, it was the last interlude by Master P where he says, you know, we're putting people on a pedestal when they're human just like us. That was where he said, like, black kids don't get therapy. We have to figure it out for ourselves. You got to rehab yourself, but for us, you can't pull the plug on us. Which, again, is talking about how black people are just, like, put through the ringer. Like, we are put through so much shit, you know, and depression and, you know, mental health and, you know, self-care. It's Borderline is called Borderline in parentheses, like self-care, the ode to self-care. You guys know I'm all about self-care. I'm all about taking care of yourself. Have you practiced self-care today? I tweet all the time. You know, holding on to your well-being and, you know, doing things that make you feel good, because that is also revolution. Self-care, taking care of yourself, feeling your joy, indulging in it. You know, owning your power, owning your respect, you know, because they can't fucking pull the plug on us as hard as they've been trying. They can't get rid of us. So there was just like a lot of themes and just a lot of discussion. There was a lot of discussion that was had on this album that I enjoyed, and again, that I felt was so relatable. It's an album about the Black experience for Solange, and I found it to be extremely, relatable. Just everything about it, and the fact that she did throw in, the contradiction of being in a world that hates you but simultaneously wants to be you. And closing out with this piece called The Chosen Ones, about how we are the chosen ones, about how we came here as slaves, but now we're the gods of this country. We're the gods of mainstream culture. We're the gods of music. We're the fucking gods of everything that we touch. It was very empowering. It was very empowering. Now this is an album that I can say I feel empowered, because like I said, with Lemonade, I don't feel empowered when I listen to Lemonade. I feel sad. It feels like a very heavy album to me personally. This is an album that I can say I felt like was relatable. It made me feel empowered. It made me feel like listening to it is an act of self-care that I'm indulging in. And I just loved it. I really did love A Seat at the Table. I give it two huge thumbs up. Like I said, it really just goes into a lot of themes and a lot of perspectives and a lot of things that I just found really, really relatable as a Black woman, and especially a Black American woman, an African American woman in this country. I think, we talk a lot about disruption. Jesse Williams, we will disrupt their function. And I think Solange is disrupted and wants to disrupt. And it's healing and empowering, and I would definitely recommend it. I loved it a lot. So I know you guys liked it. You guys really wanted this review. So like I said, this video is long. I really wanted to take my time and get into a lot of, unpack a lot of the things that I thought were important. So like I said, this video is already super long, so I'm not going to get into the visuals for Crane's Don't Touch My Hair and her short video about the making of the album. That's going to be another video, a part 2, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, check the description box. There's going to be lots of good stuff in there, album reviews and information, and of course, let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace. There were a couple more things that I wanted to read you guys before I go, so I have some phone notes that I'm going to read really, really quick. Some lines that stood out for me. Don't want to do the dishes, just want to eat the food. You want to be the teacher, don't want to go to school. Both of those lines were from Junie, and they made me think about how people want to partake, basically how they want to partake in our culture, but they don't want to put in the work, exactly. They say I changed, what a pity if I stayed the same. That was from Don't Wish Me Well. They get so much from us, then try to fuck with us. Don't be mad if you can't sing along, just be happy you got the whole wide world. That's from FUBU. There's war outside these doors, let's just take it off tonight. I know you're tired, lovers on a mission, let's take an intermission, which is from Borderline, an ode to self-care. And just the entire I Got So Much Magic interlude, which I wrote down as an ode to Black girl magic, joy, and self-care as a revolutionary act. There's like a little 3 or 4 set of songs in there, like Borderline, Junie, that are just like straight jams, like they're bops, like they're funk. Junie is named after a funk artist. What's her name? Let me tell you guys exactly what her name is. Yo, I updated my phone to iOS 10 and it is not working properly. No, I can't find it. I know one of you guys know, but I know that Junie is named after a funk artist that's also named Junie. Another little excerpt from an article that I wanted to read to you guys about A Seat at the Table. A Seat at the Table is titled after a refrain popularized during the Civil Rights Movement that grew out of the humiliation of Black Americans who were barred from lunch counters in the Jim Crow South. Speaking in front of young organizers in 1965, the tired civil rights leader James Forman stated, "If we can't have a seat at the table, then let's knock the fucking legs off," which I thought was really powerful. I wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to say that FUBU reminded me of Mr. Nigga, which is a song by Mos Def off his album Black on Both Sides, which was his debut solo album after the work that he did with Talib Kweli as Black Star. That's one of my, Yasin Bey, not Mos Def. which is one of my all-time favorite albums. Like Black on Both Sides is one of my all-time favorite albums. It has Mathematics on there. It has Fear Not a Man. It has May December, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. Miss Fat Booty, which everybody knows, but it also has a song called Mr. Nigga, which is about how it feels to be a rich person, a famous person, a celebrity, a musician, an artist, and yet still be seen as a nigga. So you're Mr. Nigga. And the hook goes like, Mr. Nigga, nigga, nigga. Oh, and you know, Q-Tip is also on that song. And Q-Tip is on also a bunch of these Solange tracks. He does some background vocals, and I think he did some production on some of these as well. Tweet is on the album doing background vocals. Andre 3000, who I mentioned. Was there anybody else that I wanted to mention? No one's coming to mind right now. But yeah, FUBU reminded me of Mr. Nigga also, just like getting tried for no reason except that you're black, and how that feels and what that feels like, especially when these same people then want to like turn around and they want to take everything from you, you know? They don't want to do the dishes, they just want to eat the food, you know? And they want to scrunch up their face and say, well, why can't I say the N-word? And why can't I say nigga? And it's like, well, you don't get treated like a nigga when they fucking ask you, what's your name again? Or they want to make sure you're sitting in the right place when you're sitting in first class, which is something that Mos Def talks about on Mr. Nigga, when they're not asking you, where do you live again? Because you pull up to a nice house. But yet, like, everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to be a nigga, not for real, you know? So I also wanted to talk about the interlude after Don't Touch My Hair, called This Moment. Master P says, this is home, this is where we're from, this is where we belong, we came here as slaves, and now we're leaving as royalty. Which he also says in the Chosen Ones, come here as slaves, going out as royalty, able to show that we truly are the chosen ones. And I've been thinking about this a lot since my video on the Get Down about very specific African American viewpoints and how those are different from viewpoints of immigrants or the descendants of immigrants, African immigrants, West Indian, Caribbean, people that came to this country fairly recently, versus those of us that are the descendants of slaves. We have a very different viewpoint. And I actually wanted to read you guys some tweets about it. I was tweeting the other day about how there are certain things that you just won't get if you're black. You're just not going to get it. I can't explain it to you. You're not going to get it. And how, in that same token, there are certain things that you're just not going to get if you're not African American. I can't explain it to you, even if you're black. I can't explain it to you. You're not going to get it. Like, oh, your parents came here in the 70s or 80s, like, from Nigeria. Like, that's nice. But, like, my family's been in Washington, D.C. for the last 100 years. And we've been in this country for 400 years before that, you know? Like, you don't... A lot of what I feel as an African American that has been in this country for so long and built this country, you don't know where I'm coming from. You just don't know where I'm coming from. And how people take that the wrong way, and how it bothers them when you want to talk about being an African American specifically, and someone said when you want to talk about that, they accuse you of being divisive, and how you have other types of black people that envy African Americans our hyper visibility, and so they don't want us to talk about ourselves or center ourselves or be specific, or, you know, I felt like I got a lot of that with my Get Down video. Oh, you're being divisive, and like, why does it matter? But like, as an African American, I have certain experiences that you don't. You're not here with me. And so I said, you know, random, but I also find the way that people consume Solange and Beyonce's work, most recent work, pretty interesting for this reason. They're African Americans making work from a distinctly African American viewpoint. Negro Knows with Jackson 5 Nostrils is African American as fuck, not just black. That's a distinct African American reference. See also FUBU, For Us By Us, which I talked about is the name of an African American brand. That's African American shit, not just black people shit. Those are references to our culture, specifically our shit, and it's not for everybody, and not everybody's going to get it, because OG point, there are some things you're just not going to get if you're not African American. You know, and somebody said, like, yeah, like, I'm not African American, I didn't immediately get the FUBU clothing line reference, for example, like African Americans probably did, and I'm sure it's not the only reference that I missed. However, I feel like I can relate to the album a lot, and when she says FUBU, us means black people in general, and I replied, yes, it means black people in general, but it can also mean African Americans specifically, and that's fine. It's okay for African Americans to center themselves also, and I know a lot of y'all not gonna like it because I feel like I've gotten into so many like arguments about this with people that aren't immigrants or the children of immigrants, first generation, second generation, West Indian, Caribbean, like I said, like African, Nigerian, Trinidadian. I've had this conversation, Guyanese, you know, feeling like, oh, why do African Americans always have to like take up all this spotlight all the time? Well, like, especially in this country, I would say that we earned it. So you're not going to get me to shut the fuck up about that. So those are just some more thoughts that I wanted to say before I go. So food for thought as always. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And I'm going to get a video up on the visual components of a seat at the table also, hopefully by the end of this week. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. See you next time. Peace.